Okay, I think we can get started here. Thank you for everybody for joining us today. Good day to you. Welcome. My name is David Snyder. I'm a sports specialist here at Aladtec, and I'm joined today by one of our system specialists, Matt Zinnel, who will be taking you through the system here in just a moment. Thank you for joining us to go through an Aladtec system for fire and rescue. We're going to look at today's agenda here real quick. Today's webinar will be about 45 minutes. We're going to do a quick overview of Aladtec, and then Matt's going to walk you through the system. And we're going to maybe even get you to help us out here and interact with us with a couple of quick polls to get some insight from you and where you're from and what kind of situations you guys are dealing with. And at any point during this webinar, by the way, you can certainly post your questions in the webinar questions area there on the dashboard, and I'll be fielding those as Matt is going through the presentation here today. And I'll answer those that are a little more direct to you, or if this is a good question that we can answer at the end, we'll save that question for the end so that everybody gets a chance to hear the answer. And we're going to answer as many questions as we can as we get through the system. So please stay tuned for that. And first, we're going to talk about a little bit about who we are. We're Aladtec. We're a cloud-based scheduling and workforce management software platform. Our system is designed to handle the unique staffing habits of fire and rescue services and other public safety agencies. Here's our picture of our building here. We're located right here in River Falls, Wisconsin in the Midwest. We're about 30 minutes east of the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities area. We've been around since about 2002 as a web-based scheduling system, and we started out with just a local ambulance service. And since then, as you can see, we've grown to host more than 2,100 agencies with 135,000 users across the US and Canada. We have all sorts of customers from big and small. We have a fire and rescue customer here that you see on the left, a rural department with about 20 members, to a large urban agency that has several hundred firefighters and paramedics. So all different sizes. We do everything in-house here. You can see some of our staff here. We do everything from engineering to configuration to sales and support as well. Because when you call, you're going to talk to one of us. You're always going to speak with a real person right here in Wisconsin. You can access our information in your system from anywhere, from any device here. You'll see it on a desktop, on a tablet, on a smartphone, whether that be, Apple or Android. And it's updated instantly. All changes are live, so users will always have the most current version of the schedules and any other content within. As part of your subscription, there's no extra costs. Everything is included. We provide all setup, all training, and unlimited free telephone support as long as you're a customer. Your system can be configured to be unique to your own service at any point through schedules, through forms, and any part of it. We can create these schedules as unique as necessary. If you have something that seems to be a shift pattern that you can use, we can customize that pattern and build it right into the system to match what you need. And speaking of that, we're going to talk, here's one of the polls that I mentioned. We were hoping to get an idea from you here of what kind of fire rescue team service that you have. So if you wouldn't mind taking a look at the poll in front of you there and answer one of the options that best fits what your particular company is, how it's represented. And we'll take a moment and share those results here in just a moment. Getting some people voting in here, that's terrific. People another moment. Perfect. Okay, we'll close and take a look at that. So great. Oh, good. We have some fire EMS with multiple stations, so you're going to be able to see how you can manage all those stations together here in the system. Okay, I think at this point we're going to give it over to Matt, and he's going to give you an overview of all the features here within the system and give you some of the ideas, some of the benefits that you will be able to see and help you determine whether our system is a good fit for your organization. So take it away, Matt. Thanks.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Dave. So, like I said, hello everyone. My name is Matt Zinnel, a system specialist here with Aladtec, and really my primary job here is to really take anybody who's interested in Aladtec, learn a little bit more about your department, and configure you a system, of course, and also helping with any sort of implementation. So happy to be walking everybody here through the generic fire system that we have. Should cater to the majority, but of course, everybody is a little unique in their own way. So again, happy to have a further, more in-depth conversation with anybody who's interested and see how Aladtec can help you. But with all that said, without further ado, we will jump right into the system that we have here today. So again, just to clarify, again, how you would access the Aladtec system, all you have to do is type in your unique web address, and that for this particular item is going to be aladtec.com/the fire webinar. So that would usually be labeled the name of your actual department. So you can type that in again into any browser, and that will get you right to your login screen. And if you're on a desktop, this is the first page that you're going to see. So you can really customize this first screen if you want to add any sort of additional content on here. So whether that's an image, you want to put like a picture of your patch up there, you can add links that go to other sites or systems that you might be using. You can also embed videos for training purposes, lots of different things that you can do and customize right on this home page. And you can do that all yourself right under your home tab in your homepage editor. Also on your home screen is going to be your dashboard, and this is one of many screens that is going to be unique to each person based on what your access is. So if you're an actual administrator within the system, you'll see a lot more information, specifically going to be anything that's pending approval. So any sort of pending trades that I have out there will be listed right here. I have a couple signups out there for overtime on a couple of those different positions and a couple of different vacation requests. So again, just a nice little snapshot of what's currently awaiting your approval at this point. Under that is going to be any sort of upcoming shifts. So this will actually indicate when you yourself are scheduled to work next. We do have an information expiration report that will track any sort of expiring licenses or certifications. And again, you as an administrator get that information for everybody within your system that you oversee, where if this was just a firefighter logged into the system, they would only see that information if it related to them, followed by any sort of events, trades, or discussions, which we'll be going through each of those as we're kind of navigating through the system here today. So really the next section I wanted to run everybody through before we look at the schedule itself is going to be the member database. And it's for a couple of reasons, because a lot of the information that's in the member database translates to other areas of the program. So from here you can track any sort of just basic information, whether or not that's actually your contact information, all the way to your address, emergency contact, and we can also track any sort of certifications. So if you did want to monitor any of these in our system, it's just a matter of getting all that data loaded in, and then you can get a heads up when, again, things are coming close to expiring or have actually expired. But all the different filters are going to be located here in the top right corner. This is really where you can pick and choose what you're looking at and who you're looking at. So I can switch this over, just show me some general information, title, things like that. But again, as a standard firefighter, you would really only get to see your own profile page. You don't get to see everybody's information. So let's just grab Herbert here on top. So if I put my name or my mouse right over his name and hit edit member, that'll take me right into his profile. Now from here, you have your basic information on top. It's going to be first name, last name, login, password, date hired, your different access levels and your different work groups. Those are all profiles that we'll create to actually determine, what are you allowed to do in the system? Are you a battalion chief? Are you a captain? Or are you just a standard user? We can also configure different work groups. Those are more sets of rules that I'll be addressing. So any sort of full-time, part-time volunteer, each category really has their own settings to determine what you're actually allowed to do within the system. But more importantly, under that is going to be the messaging information. So definitely something I encourage everybody to add in your mobile phone number, your email address, and then your mobile phone provider. So that way our system can actually send you the different notifications from Aladtec. And there's really about 4 different types that I'm going to show you here today. These first notifications that we're looking at right here, these are really more of the automated messages. So each person can really pick and choose text and or email in any of these scenarios. So if you sign up or do a time off request or a trade, whenever those are actually approved or denied by your scheduler, you'll actually get a message back to you letting you know the status of that. So were you approved or denied, to make sure you're kept in the loop on all of those. And then on the right side here, we have the different fine coverage, which we'll be looking at. That's really the message you'll get if there's an open shift out there. We do have different form notifications, and along with that, an upcoming shift reminder. So what the upcoming shift reminder does is sends out a message 24 hours before each of your shift times, and that's just going to remind you of when and where you're actually working that day. So for those who may not be working, a 24/48 or 48/96, that can be really beneficial if you are working a little bit more of a sporadic schedule, as if there's no consistency, then just making sure that you are aware that you were assigned to a particular shift. But of course, anybody can use it. A lot of people do utilize that tool all the time. We also do have a recent enhancement that we made to the messaging tool. And this is more for people who actually have scheduling rights or scheduling access. And if you see this here, this is actually where you can define how me as a scheduler, I want to get notifications when things are pending. And this is really important, especially for any sort of the fire EMS services that have multiple stations, is if I only manage one station, I really only want to get messages for that group of people. And we can, when implementing your system, define that based on access levels or work groups and say that, all right, I want to manage maybe I just manage just the part-time. So I can check those boxes there and say, I want text and or email for all of those. And even though I can still approve other people at other stations, I really only want to get notified for this group. So that was a recent enhancement that we made in terms of our messaging and how those all route. But continuing down is the work qualifications. This is where we'll determine what each person's actually allowed to work within the program. This, of course, is going to be very unique to each department based on what your access is and how you want to create it. A lot of people will do it based on, engine 1, engine 2. Some people will do it based on stations. It really all depends on what you're trying to get out of the system and how you want it to look. So we can create those, and then all the positions that are within them. So firefighter, lieutenant, EMT, driver, all of those we can, again, customize, and then each person gets assigned their own unique profile, which is really important because when you're managing your schedule, the system will regulate only these people are qualified for this and only I can interact with that particular position itself. So lots of ways we can configure that. We also do have a time off accrual section. This is essentially where you can create these profiles. And what the profiles will do is have a defined amount of hours that will be added to each of the banks of time. And after we create those profiles, assign it to everybody, it'll automatically add time into those banks, and then whenever time off is used within our system, it will deduct from those banks. You do not have to use this feature. If you want to use time off in Aladtec, you can just pull reports on what has been used, but if you do want to track what they actually have available, that's something we can set up for you, and I'd, of course, be happy to answer any questions on that. And then under there is really your section. This is where you can build it and customize it to make it your own. So everything from the general information and down, all these fields here, these are just some samples we have built in. But if we go under the members tab and go to the member database configurator page, let's go here quick. From here, this is really where you can add any additional fields, and it is really just as easy as dragging and dropping. So I guarantee you can figure this out really quickly. If you jump in here and start pulling in fields, you can just click right onto the words themselves, and that'll actually allow you to edit that text. So we can build this out however you need, and really the ones I wanted to point out that have the functionality behind them are the expiration dates. So you want to make sure you choose this one if it is something that does reoccur. And we also have the regular date fields for something that's more of just a completed date that doesn't actually expire. We also do have these attachment fields that we've also recently added to the system, where once you pull in that attachment field, then people can actually upload or like a physical scanned copy of that license or certification, and that way you'll have that hard copy attached to that item. And that's something with a lot of this information, it's really up to you whether or not you want maybe one administrator to manage this for everybody. We can definitely set it up that way. Or I have a handful of departments who want all their staff to manage it themselves and track it. And so those are a lot of the settings that we can configure in the access levels for you. All right, and then one last thing here that I wanted to show you is there is a mass messaging tool. So if you wanted to just send out a blanket text or email to every single person, just check this box right here. hit send message and type that out, and you're now sending a message to all 40 people in your current roster. So that was about it that in terms of what I wanted to cover for the member database before we actually dive into the schedule. But before we do that, I'm launching a poll really quick here just to learn a little bit more about how everybody is currently managing your schedule. If it's more of a manual task, or maybe you're coming from a different solution that's out there. So really kind of nice for me to understand that. So as I'm navigating through some of these different things on the schedule, I can kind of cater it to exactly what you're using. So we'll just give it a couple more seconds here. We'll get some good answers in. Looks like we got a handful of people. That's great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this and we'll share that quick. All right, so mostly other and a different solution, which is great, but we definitely have a handful of different spreadsheets and manual solutions, which is definitely very common and something that we run into regularly. So thank you all for sharing that. But let's dive right into our schedule here. So what we're currently looking at is our monthly calendar view. I'm really just going to start off with some of the basics on how to navigate through the screens we have, and then we can dive into more of the actual changes and the approvals and items like that. So your day-to-day schedule management. But within all of our views, we definitely have a lot of different filtering options. So anyone from a small to mid to very large department, they can all use this screen because of this edit link here. That's where you can locate all your different filters. Click on edit, and let's say if I just wanted to look at my engine one, let's hide the others right now. And especially if you had these all set up as vehicles, and let's say these 3 vehicles are all in my station 2. So that way, when you set this up and you create the filter the way you want it to be, let's just choose engine 1 and 2 here, I can actually hit save as, and I can call this station 2, and then that's going to be a saved filter. So once we get all those created, you'll have a drop-down menu here, and you can easily switch between these just to save you some time of messing with those checkboxes every time you come in here. So this is one of the ways we can filter through this. We also do have a couple different daily options. So this is our daily blocks view. This one's really going to give you more of an hour-by-hour breakdown of who's working when and where for each schedule that you have. It has all the positions listed down the left side. It also does have a minimum staffing count. So if that's something that we build into your schedules for you, it'll let you know when you're actually short on a given day and when you need to get additional coverage. So that's one way to look at it. We also do have a, let's see here, it's our daily summary view. And this one's going to give you more of a, breakdown of just who's working and what the different numbers are for that day. And along with that, we do have a weekly option here too. So if you did want to see more of just a 7-day stretch, kind of left to right, you can look at it this way too. And again, depending on exactly what type of schedule you're coming from, everybody has familiarity in other areas or different screens in the system. They all serve their own purpose. So really the next page I wanted to show you is the My Schedule page. So if we go into the schedules here and we go to My Schedule, aside from the main calendar where you can see when everybody's working, who you're working with, who already has time off, this is a really important page, as this is really the only screen in our system that your standard firefighter or medic would really have to know how to use, as they can see just their personal schedule and when they have to work. What you can also do is any sort of interaction that you really need to do in the system. So any sort of time off, if I click on the medic one here on the 22nd, just to interact with that day, I can hit request time off. And then I can choose the date and the time range. So if it's anything less or more than the actual shift itself, I can adjust that. And then I can choose what type of time I want to use. And if you do choose to use the accruals, that's where it'll actually tell you. You have 86 hours in your bank. This is going to cost you 12. You'll have 74 after approval. So a nice little heads up on how much time you actually have. And you can type in a note to your supervisor there too. So we'll go ahead and hit request. That's now pending. Would have sent them a message. For trades, let's click on the 24th here. Click on that, and we're going to hit request trade. And Aladtec does have two different types of trades, so we can enable or disable this as you see fit. But we have giveaways, which are really more of a one-sided trade of you're just going to work for me on this day, and that's the end of the transaction, where a swap actually requires you to offer me a day back. So before that gets approved, it's already been paid back within a certain amount of time. And we can add different restrictions to swaps. So if you do require, it has to be within the same pay period or the same FLSA cycle, we can set it up that way too. So that's all regulated. So essentially, if it's going up for approval, you know that it's already within your parameters. We also do have a list of different recipients here, and this is where you can either send it out to everybody who's eligible to switch with you. You'll see this is a little limited because I'm actually scheduled as a paramedic that day, and these are only the other people who could work for me based on where I'm working. So I could send it out to everybody, or let's say I was already talking to Bob yesterday. I know he's going to trade with me. I could send that request just to Bob. And then we do have another item here. So if there are any open shifts or just overtime vacancies on your schedule, it could mean a number of different things, whether if it's for a detail or an event or just an overtime shift in general. You can see those right from here. And if I'm interested in working this one, then I can actually just click right onto that and I can hit sign up. So again, that's the user side of things. I'm going to flip back to the admin side here and really show you how you can actually make those different approvals and manage those, as each person will do that a little bit differently. So we're going to focus here on November 15th right now. I have this captain spot that's been opened on this day, and I have these 3 different people who have all volunteered and signed up for that vacancy. So what I'm going to do is actually hover over my engine 1 and hit edit schedule. And that'll bring me right into this hourly editor page. So for anyone here today who's actually going to be the one doing the scheduling, I'd say this is the most important screen for you to really understand, as this is where you make all your day-to-day changes, approvals, and different adjustments. Now, if you look at the bottom of this page here, this is where you'll see I have 3 different signups. I have a couple people who are just on a regular day off, and then I have a couple people who are just scheduled elsewhere. Again, this list is all going to be shown to you based on what you have selected. So you see there's really not that many people in here, but if I switch this over to firefighter, you notice that list just about quadruples in size. So whenever you have a position selected, that's always going to show you who you're actually able to work with right there. But I'm going to focus on this little calculator section for a few moments, as this is really where if I need to add in any additional criteria to help me determine who am I going to approve? Is it based on just total number of hours within a given time range? I can use this calculator, again, right under this edit here, where I can view the hours for the week, month, year to date, or pay period. So that'll calculate those figures, and I can have that just do all of the total hours. Or let's say maybe I distribute that just based on previous overtime that's already worked within that year, and try to balance it out that way. That's an option. If we go under our member info list here, we could also pull in maybe a date hired for seniority purposes. And then I know some different people also do it on more of a rotating list, where it's last time that you were assigned something. And that's just one of those methods where if that is something you do, just let us know, and we can try to learn a little bit more about your process and integrate that into this area. But on more of a basic level, like I said, if we're doing it based on hours and seniority, let's just choose Terrence here. So I'm going to click on this top one for Terrence, and one other layer that we can add to a schedule are called time types. These are mostly for reporting purposes. It's really up to you on how specific you want to get with these, or if you even want to use that. But we can say maybe this is out of rank. Maybe Terrence is actually usually just an engineer and not actually qualified to be a captain, but can fill a captain spot. So let's say if we choose the out of rank code, hit approve, that will assign Terrence into that position. It'll also automatically decline the other 2 signups. So all 3 people involved got a message letting them know you were approved or denied, and then Terrence there is filled into that spot with that out of rank code. So in your reports, you'll be able to run those numbers and how often that happens. So that is really the basic sign-up process. But again, everybody does that a little bit differently. So we can always look into some specifics on that. But I did want to show you a couple other items in terms of just schedule management as a whole. Let's say you are short on this particular day here, but I'd much rather have engine 1 staffed than engine 2. I can worry about that one a little bit later. So if you wanted to take somebody, let's say June, and move them from one schedule to another, I can actually just drag and drop them as a whole. So you can pick that up, you can drag and drop it from one schedule to another. You can actually shorten or extend these too if you just grab the edge of them. So it is pretty easy to make your daily adjustments. As I know lots of times morning of, day of, if you get a couple sick calls or you need to make those last minute adjustments, you can pop into here and move those people around pretty quick. All right, so a couple of the other approvals that we can look at is, let's look at the trades here. That one's pretty easy. Again, especially if we set up the restrictions in the back end. So it's already meeting your rules and your standards for the most part based on how we've defined that. But I can click on this sign up or this trade and see that, all right, Tim requested this on July 11th, and it looks like Kay was the one who actually accepted it. So this one's a swap. So this is actually a day for a day, given back August 14th there. So actually that one has expired. All right, so let's go in here and let's accept this one from Sue. So we're gonna go in as Tim really quick. And on Tim's My Schedule, he can see, all right, here's that trade I was just looking at. It looks like Sue is trying to give me that captain spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that shift. All right, now we're gonna go back there as an admin really quick. So if we click on this trade right here, and now I can see that I can approve or deny this. So we're gonna hit approve. And then right when you hit approve, basically your job is done, because now you'll see that Tim has been scheduled for Sue. Both people did receive a message letting them know that that was approved. And you have this permanent trade record on this day to indicate that that has occurred. All right. And then if we open up our schedules a little bit more here, just wanted to show you really quick on what a time off request would look like. This one's pretty straightforward. You can see if I click on this time off request here for Herbert, again, approve or deny, you have a note field. And then when you approve it, it pulls them off the schedule. All right. So I did briefly want to run you through also what it looks like from the mobile version. So for the most part, those are all the features that I wanted to touch on when it comes to the schedule for the desktop. But just to briefly show you what it would look like, as the majority of your firefighters or users, I would bet up in the 80 percentile range that they're going to be using the majority of this on their smartphone. So from here, this is where you can see any upcoming shifts. So it really just tells you when you're scheduled to work next, any available trades, upcoming time off, events, lots of different things that we can add on there. You also have your daily summary. The daily summary really just tells you who you're working with that day. You can really get that kind of snapshot of just for that day. And then you can also hit your calendar here if you want to navigate to a different day. And then we'll also look at the My Schedule, which functions almost identical to the schedule I was just showing you before, where you can tap on any of these days here and interact with them. So if I wanted time off on this day, I can click on it and do time off or a trade. All right. And of course, you can do your all your different forms from there too, which is exactly what I'm going to be jumping into next. So I did want to briefly run everybody through our forms tool and some of the different capabilities that this is also going to offer. And again, if anyone does have any specific questions that relate to any other schedule scenarios or anything like that, feel free to always post those in our little questions box there. So To create your own form, this is an example of what all the different fields look like. So if short answer, drop downs, long answer, multi-option, and we also have an electronic signature here too. So you can build your own forms really from scratch. If I come in here, and it's just like the member database where it's really all going to be drag and drop, where I can pull in any additional fields, checkboxes. We do have those different attachments that can be added in here too. It is really just as easy as that. All your different sections, but we, either the support department or any of the system specialists, we're always happy to make suggestions too. So if you have something that you're currently using now on paper, you can always just send it over to us and we're happy to take a look at it. But a very common one is, of course, going to be the vehicle check sheet. So if you're doing your weekly or monthly check sheet, you can have this pulled up, whether it's on your smartphone or on like an iPad or something like that. So as you're actually walking around the vehicle, you can be marking these down completely paperless. I can actually build in certain notifications too. So let's say everything is perfectly fine with the truck. We're good to go. It gets filed and logged and you can pull reports on that. But if something's wrong with it, I could actually have it set up to automatically flag and send you an email or whoever manages those types of issues. So that way they're aware that there is something that needs to be addressed. So we can set it up that way. That also works really well with like an end of shift report. Drug box inventory is something that we've set up before. So a couple different options that we can show you here. But like I said, with the messaging, you can have someone come in here and update it who actually has the rights to go and give that a particular status update. And then we can also run reports. So if you wanted to, say, run a report on every time that a particular vehicle has been checked in the last year, or anytime there was actually something wrong with it, that's something we could do too. And all of our reports that we have, they do all export into Excel. So if you need to extract the data, we give you a lot of different ways to actually filter that information down. But you can take all the different data, whether it's actual scheduled time, this is just a snapshot of what an actual scheduled time report might look like. And then we also have another very important report here that's called our system log. So the system log, essentially what this one's doing for you is it's going to track every single action that's ever taken within our system. So it'll give you a date and timestamp of when that action was taken, who took that action, what did they do, who it affected. Any other additional details are all going to be listed off to the right there. So anyone who is coming from more of a spreadsheet or a whiteboard or something like that, I'm sure you can imagine the extra accountability that you would have of moving to something where that's all going to be tracked and monitored. And you can always look back, from the life of your subscription. When you start Aladtec, you can pull up this data and see exactly what happened and when. Now, another feature in terms of accountability that I like to show everyone is our required messages. So if we go under here and let's hit create new message. So a lot of people do use this for more of a formal capacity, or it can be pretty informal. It's really up to you. But this is one of the new policies I just created here recently, that the new rookie has to bring me coffee every morning. And you can come in here and you can send that out to whoever you want, whether that's, we'll say that's Herbert. That's your new job. So send out that policy to Herbert, and then it doesn't go out through like a text or an email, but the next time that person logs in, they're going to see this message, and it's going to give you all the information. It's a required message from your admin. And the best part is I can click on whatever I want here. There's no way I can get past this. So I have to agree that I've read and understand it, hit continue. And then now as the admin, you get a logged date and timestamp of when everybody read that message. So if it was more of a formal policy, that's something too where you can keep that acknowledgement so they know that it was out there. And then we also do have a storage area in our system too. So if you wanted to actually upload any of that training material or documentation, then we can do that also right in here. All right. So that we're right at about the 35-minute mark here. We usually will use these last 10 minutes here so or for questions. So as if anyone was holding on to questions, feel free to send those in now. I will be pulling that up in just a moment here and addressing any of those. We do appreciate that. But just give me one moment here and we will dive right into those. But I think while we're waiting on doing that too, I did have one last poll here, and I just was kind of curious to hear how many members a lot of you are scheduling, to give it kind of a general idea in terms of the different sizes of the departments. Are we looking at anywhere between 100 to 250, or are we kind of in the the more medium-sized range there? So if you're able to, feel free to click on those. And then, like I said, I will be diving into any of the questions that we see. All right, so we'll give that about another 5 seconds or so here. All right. Okay, we'll see 26 to 100. I would say that is exactly in our wheelhouse in terms of a large majority of our customers are right in that range, but anyone 250 plus, we definitely have some references that we can always send you to right around that range. Okay. All right. Okay, first question that we have, thank you, Mark, is does any of the scheduling data exporter directly interface with other programs or Firehouse in particular? So all of our reports that we have do export into a CSV format. So really and that's usually what I call like the free version of interfacing with a different system, because a lot of other programs that we work with, they do allow the import of a CSV file. So if you can take that data, extract it, it'll download right into that format, and then you can import it into a different program. That's great, and that's something we're happy to make suggestions with. The other option that we have for integrating with other, let's say I have another question here from Susan, is also for like a payroll program or image trend items like that. We also do have an API. So if you're looking for more of a direct interface, that can usually be a lot more complicated in terms of how exactly and what needs to be transferred, but it's something that we do have the ability to do, and we'd be happy to have a conversation more in depth about that as the specifics are something we would need for any of those types of integrations. All right, I did have someone here ask about our time clock, and just a brief rundown on that. I'll give you a quick little overview. So our time clock is a web-based kiosk. It's not like a physical kiosk, so you can add it to any sort of computer, whether or not it's at a particular location or something, but we can add it so it is authenticated, and it will only be able to open on certain computers. But basically what you can do is set this up so they can type in their name, put in their password, and then they can actually hit clock in or clock out. And the best part about having a time clock that's integrated with your scheduling system is we of course know when you're supposed to be there. So this is where we can set up your actual grace period. So let's say I allow you to be 15 minutes early or up to 5 minutes late. And then if you're ever outside of that grace period, it will actually require you to give a reason why you're doing so. And then that will be associated with that record. And when you're reconciling those, which is actually done on this page, then you can compare when they were actually supposed to be there as to when they actually were there, and edit any of those records right on this screen here. All right. Looks like I did have a quick question on any sort of like special details outside of your regular schedule. So we can definitely create temporary schedules in your system. So maybe it's something as simple as we have a football game or anything like that. We definitely can create more informational events. Those are going to look something like this, where if we hover over, here, let's just go to today here quick, and let's say on the 13th, add this event and say, this is the Aladtec webinar, and it's going to be from this time to that time, and that's something you can add right on there. Or we can create more of a temporary schedule that just exists for that day, and people can volunteer and sign up for that. That's very common. Let's see here. I could pull up, looks like I actually have one here back in August. And that would look something like this. So it's really more just an open event for that day. And the nice part is, if you have that built into, you can add this filter, which I call more of my events calendar, where it cuts out all the extra information and it just shows you that. All right. So we've got another question here. A little bit of concern on some of the users and just how people adapt and learn the system, as they have a couple people who aren't exactly what you would call tech savvy. So definitely something that is very common. Of course, you're not alone in that regard. There's many departments who are in that, who have trouble rolling out new systems like this. But that's a big part of what I do here at Aladtec, is I help throughout the implementation process. And I think you'd be surprised that on average, our standard user training can be anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, as it really is that easy. It's mainly just covering the My Schedule, just making sure just navigate to the right page. If you start clicking on things, it's going to be pretty straightforward. It's, do your time off, do your trades, do your signups. Really, the majority of the training that I do is all just for your different schedulers. All right. Just bear with me one moment here, just pulling up another set of questions. Looks like we did have a question on pricing. So in terms of pricing, that is going to be based on the number of users within your system, or active users. And our base pricing is going to be anything 41 users and under will be a set amount. Anything above that, it scales at about $5 to $7 per user per month. I know that's kind of a little bit of a range, but one of our account executives would be happy to give you more of an accurate quote. We just need to, again, learn a little bit more about your department and exactly what your needs are, and then we can get you those more of an accurate figure there. All right, it looks like I have someone here. No, that's a great question, John. So he has a lot of times where he can overlook when people are working too often, especially with part-time. So let's jump into these work groups really quick here. So what I can do is I have these full-time, part-time, and volunteer groups. They each kind of abide by their own rules. But if we go under full-time, so this is where I have your different trades. So those are great settings to set up, especially because full-time might be a little more regulated than part-time. You can set that to be same pay period, things like that. But what I really wanted to answer his question with is for work limits. So work limits are where you can set up if there's a certain amount of hours in a row. So I do not want people working more than 48 in a row. Or more for part-time, you make sure you stay under a set amount for that particular week. And really all this is going to do is it's going to show you a warning. So if you ever try to take that action, it's not exactly going to stop you, but it's going to warn you and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Or you can set it up to do not allow ever. And that's more of your FLSA restriction of you really can't do that unless it's a crazy emergency, which of course happens, and which is why we usually set it up to be a warning. And then we also have minimum time off in between shifts. So that's another rule that we can set up too. All right. But I think we're just about out of time here. So just to wrap up, on the GoToWebinar control panel, we do have 4 handouts there. So feel free to take a look at those, all great information. And I apologize if there's any questions we didn't get to here today, but definitely be happy to field phone call if you want to give us a call, but I do really appreciate, again, everybody joining us here for this high-level overview of the Aladtec and work scheduling workforce management platform. I really hope that I've really helped us demonstrate how we can streamline some of these different tasks for tracking certifications, communications, overtime, any sort of other scheduling related functions. So again, one of our system specialists would be happy to prepare more of an in-depth demonstration for your agency. Now, just please give us a call at 888-749-5550, or you can always visit our website at www.aladtec.com. Again, thank you everybody for joining. We'll leave the meeting open for a few moments here so you can check out those handouts, but I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great day.